Welcome to another episode of Pistons of Fury. In this episode, we're building a DIY OEM-ish turbo support bracket for the 1966 Coronet Dodge Station Wagon Turbo Mopar project. Okay, so in the last episode, we got this radiator, fan support, shroud, and everything all intact. Basically, just fabbed up some brackets, have them tentatively mounted in place. A little bit of adjustment that I need to do there, but I think that's good. And what this does for me is it allows me to see where the rest of the components that all have to occupy this very small area have to go. So the episode before that, we actually mounted the intercooler, so now in the last episode, I left some space in here for the condenser. So I'll get a new condenser, and that'll fit right in this area that I've left for it, so that's good. AC will be functional, and all will be right in the world. What I'm going to focus on this episode, as I mentioned at the end of the last episode, is I need to create a bracket to basically support my header and my turbo so that all of the weight of the turbo when the engine moves, when the car moves, hits bumps, etc., is not placed on this single thin wall eBay $120 header manifold. So what I'm going to do is basically start with some cardboard. I'm going to mock up a template to basically come to the head. So because there's nothing bolted to this cylinder head here on the passenger side, I'm going to use those there's kind of three threaded holes right on the head that I'm going to use as my anchor point for that bracket. And we're going to come here basically to the T4 flange and and just create a little bracket to secure everything together. So let's get started. Okay, so what I've done here is I've created, using some junk mail, with this, I guess it's like a thick cardstock, so you could probably just use like cardstock if you have it laying around, or junk mail tends to work pretty well. So what I've done is I've created this template, basically I've marked the holes. I kind of punched through them right here, so I can line these up to the two upper holes on the head. I'll worry about the lower hole mount. I've got that covered for now. And what I've done is I've created just this basic piece with two 90-degree bends in it, and basically I have some little ears that I taped on there at the end, which are going to come through and allow it to be bolted when the turbo mounts. So basically the turbo bolts will hold that on, and this will basically be it'll create the basis for the mount to the head. So what I'm going to do, obviously this is going to be 16 gauge sheet metal, and what I'm going to do as a start is just make this piece. So this is now just a regular two-dimensional piece that I can trace out on sheet metal and cut that out. So once I get that done, I'll make sure I get my mounting holes correct. I'll make sure that the measurements that I have here made out of this piece of flexible cardboard are actually the ones that I need. And once I get that perfect and basically secure, what I'll do is I'll come in here and start to box it out. So I'm going to create kind of like a three-dimensional structure in multiple different pieces out of sheet metal. And one variable that I have to think about is I'm going to be taking the truck style water pump on this engine and basically tapping the top of it to move the water inlet and outlet from the side to the top to gain some clearance for my my crossover pipe. So yeah, next thing, just got to trace this out on some sheet metal and get it cut out. Okay, sit rep. Got the bracket basically roughed out. Have some bolts here. It's kind of holding it flush against the head, so that's all mounted where it needs to be. Also have some bolts here through this T4 flange. Saw me, the last thing I did there was I was just kind of stress relieving. There was still a little bit of binding in the bracket, just kind of right in here. I didn't get this bend 100% right, so basically just came in here with a screwdriver and a hammer and just kind of stress relieve. So hopefully when I pull this off, it won't be such a chore to get it wrestled back on. So next, so actually here's the water outlets I was talking about before. So I'm going to remove these, plug these holes, and I'm actually going to tap right in here, tap some new ones that come up and away from my downpipe, because as you see here, my downpipe is right there. I could have done a better job of coming at an angle with my downpipe, but I wanted to kind of come back and come forward into my collector, just to be at a better angle for exhaust gas. You don't want it going backwards into the header. That would be ridiculous. So anyway, I'm not going to do this first, but what I am going to do is try to, same cardboard method, just kind of come through here and create a little box structure. Maybe a box that comes like right in here and boxes this out, so that this isn't my only, so this is basically not the only bend in the metal that's taking all the stress, right? So the way this works right now is if I left it like this, I'd have a little bit more support, but basically this bend right here in the sheet metal will be housing all of the weight of the turbo, and that's not what I want. So I want to come out here. If I create another bend, then structurally, then I've got a couple different points where there's stress in the bracket. So I'll come out here, create a box. Hopefully my hose can just pop up through that little box when I get that tapped. And then from here, I will probably triangulate to here. And then when I come back through and do the final part of this, I'll do a little triangle or do some bracing basically on the back side of this, so these have a little bit more support. But that's pretty good for now. Yeah, it's a little rough. I'll come back and clean it up, and then I think once it's all boxed out and finished and painted or powder coated, you really won't even notice it. It'll be like a little OEM style bracket. So that's the goal here. Didn't want to do something with like Heim joints or any kind of crazy like bar steel structure like you've seen some guys do. It just looks completely out of place, and you end up focusing on that when you look at the engine bay versus what you should be focusing on, which is the turbocharger. Anyway, I think that's all I'm going to get done today. It's kind of late in the day here. So I'm going to pick this back up tomorrow and do some templating for this box and hopefully get my other supports in and call this bracket done. Okay, so we've got a bracket. We've got a turbo support bracket here. Again, 16 gauge sheet metal. It's not 100% perfect. I'll come back and clean it up before I paint it or powder coat it or whatever. Basically, it's seems pretty structural. I may come back in and do 1 or 2 more triangle braces to or gussets to further support it, but it's definitely better than just the header. So basically, I've got 3 bolt holes. I don't have the bottom bolt in right now, but using all just the stock threaded holes on the head and navigating behind this idler pulley, and then also leaving a nice passage down there for when I tap those 2 new holes for the water outlets, or inlet and outlet. Yeah, so that's a wrap for this episode. I think what I'm going to do post this episode is actually transition back and start building my transmission brace. So let's see if you can kind of see through this access hole. There's the transmission, and it's being held up by a ratchet strap and braced on some 2x4s. So I need to get that mount done. I need to rebuild the torsion bar mount because I need that to be in place before I put the torsion bars back in, and they are going to occupy probably somewhere in this little space. So I need that in place and fully supported on the car so I know where it is, and then I'll be able to build my downpipe. Yeah, so transmission brakes is kind of holding me up. It's kind of holding up a few things. It's also keeping the car up on jack stands. So I do have jack stands here, which is also stopping me from finishing these because the jack stands are in the way of me mounting these in the right place and getting the bumper on to make sure I've got full clearance there. So anyway, long story short, transmission mount is next. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed it. Would love to hear what you guys think. Again, I've seen a lot of these turbo support brackets and a lot of different ways. Sometimes people use Heim joints, sometimes they use like various like rods welded all over the place, and it just looks kind of janky. So I was going for something, I know like these old Mopars specifically, depending on the accessories you get with your stock engine, they sometimes have kind of a boxed out mount like that. So I was going for like that original style, and I think painted like a satin black. It'll blend right in, you won't even see it, and it'll look OEM. So that was the goal. OEM turbo support bracket, OEM-ish will probably be like what the video title says. Alright, thanks so much for watching. Let me know what you think, and I will see you guys in the next one.